we are going to take a look back at the Mission Impossible films in anticipation for the new Mission Impossible movie coming out this May, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. Before we get started on the first Mission Impossible from 1996, I want to read to you a review from a movie. If you can figure out what it is, then please post your answer down below and I will reveal the answer in the next video. This critic says, stretching out the material tends to accentuate the rather conventional nature of the underlying story, and by the time the deeper subtext is brought to the forefront, it draws the curtain. If you think you know what movie this review is in reference to, please post your answer down below. If you get it right, I will give you a shout out on the next video. But let's take a jump back to 1996 with Brian De Palma's Mission Impossible, starring none other than Tom Cruise.
This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
If you head on over to Rotten Tomatoes, you will see that the audience gave it 71% and the critics gave it 65%. Now, I am going to go after those critics that gave Mission Impossible a low score. It's not because I think Mission Impossible is the best movie ever. It was the exact blockbuster we needed in theaters in the summer of 1996. Admittedly, the franchise does get better with one exception. Take a guess what that is. We'll be tackling that film in the next video. But let's take a look at the first negative review. Mark R. Leeper from Movies.Reviews says, the title makes promises that the script cannot fulfill. There are better spy films that have come and gone with far less fanfare. So Mark, if you don't like Mission Impossible, why don't you go and spend your time enjoying Harriet the Spy, which came out the same year. Next up is Liz Braun. She says, not so much noir as it is flat. So, as you know, noir is French for the word black. And I don't think black and flat are words to be pitted against each other. They're not opposites in any way. So I'm not sure what she's trying to say. Does she not know what noir is? Does she not know what flat is? I don't know where she's going here. It's like me saying that the slipper isn't so much fuzzy as it is extremely hot. The two don't go together. Next we have Hal Henson from Washington Post. Hal says that Mission Impossible is humorless, charmless, and, wait for it, flat. Seems like Liz and Hal had lunch before writing their reviews and decided what they were going to say. You'll see this a lot in films that you read the individual reviews on. You'll find certain themes and words that keep popping up over and over, and it's usually the ones that are wrong about a film. Let's go on over to Robin Clifford from Reeling Reviews. He says, unfortunately, 2 scenes and a screwed up script, plus a big plot disappointment, do not a recommendation make. Yoda's just going to have to go and take that off his plate. I don't know what the hell he's saying. So let's jump on over to Chuck O'Leary from Fantastica Daily. Chuck says that Mission Impossible is an incredibly boring and confusing espionage thriller. So inept on so many levels that it could easily be called the Bonfire of the Secret Agents. I'm not sure really what he's trying to say here. Except that Brian De Palma made a film, I think 5 years prior to this, called The Bonfire of the Vampires. And that wasn't very well received with critics or audiences, so I think he's just trying to make that comparison. Except that nobody's going to get it because nobody saw The Bonfire of the Vampires. You're not going to go to like a men's Bible study where they're off track and they're talking about the best movies they've seen. They're comparing like Godfather and Jurassic Park and Fight Club. No one's going to be sitting there and say, "Hey guys, do you remember Bonfire of the Vampires? Remember that one? Man, that movie was dope." No, nobody has heard of that film. Nobody has brought that film up ever. So the reason why this guy is, I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to prove the point that he takes the narrow road and watches films that the rest of us don't. But here he is watching Mission Impossible, the biggest blockbuster of 1996. All right, next we have an anonymous critic from Variety that says Mission Impossible is the most dour sexless piece of escapism in memory. Well, it's no wonder the critic is anonymous because he's clearly a pervert. Next, we have Rob Gonzalez from Rob's Movie Vault. He says, Mission Impossible is a mission De Palma should not have chosen to accept. So we're going to go ahead and clock that, and we're just going to keep a tally as to how many other hilarious critics use that same phrasing. All right, next we have Stephen D. Great Anus from Decent Films. De Palma has a choppy, episodic sense of story, and he crafts individual scenes rather than telling a single unified story. I don't know about you, but isn't choppy good in an action film? I don't want an action film where it's a smooth ride the entire way. I don't want no conflict and no twists, no turns, which is just, smooth sailing all the way from, the beginning of Die Hard all the way to the end. That's not going to sell tickets. So yes, please make my action films choppy. Carol Buckland from CNN says, the set pieces of this film come off like clockwork, but there's no connective tissue, no storyline, no solid characterization, etc. In the end, De Palma's work seems full of sound and visual fury without signifying much of anything. And it's an action movie, right? I don't know what else she wants. What else is she looking for other than dazzling visuals and awesome sound effects? You want to hear the bombs explode. That's part of the fun. So we're just going to move past her because I do not understand what the hell she's complaining about. Let's go on over to David Bianculi from TV Worth Watching. He says, De Palma's film has some stunning sequences, but the movie so betrayed the spirit of the original TV series. By betraying the spirit and integrity of a formerly unimpeachable character that the entire project smelled of cynicism. So what does he expect? We have, essentially a 2-hour movie at most, and he wants Tom Cruise to swap with somebody else as the main character, or about 20 minutes in, another 20 minutes in, let's swap out for somebody else so that we can keep in the spirit of the original Mission Impossible series. No, it's idiotic, it's asinine. Mike Macy from Gone with the Twins says, at times, it's a touch too complicated for its own good. Some of Ethan's visualized hypotheses are arranged to be purely confusing, but the notion that no one could be trusted is largely affected. So I did touch on that, how the themes of this movie are trust and betrayal, but it sounds like Mike would much rather be watching Bridget Jones's Diary than anything Mission Impossible or action related. And as far as it being too complicated, I think Mike just might have a lot better luck watching Mission Impossible 3. That movie's a lot easier to follow because Ethan is chasing just a camel's toe or a...
You're going to tell me where the rabbit's foot is.
I know where the rabbit's foot is.
Rabbit's foot. Maybe Mike will enjoy that movie better. We'll see when we get to that video. Then we have Betsy Sherman from The Improper Bostonian. She says, what should have been a finely honed spy thriller is on cruise control in more ways than one. Or maybe The Impossible Mission is expecting a coherent movie from director Brian Set Pieces R Us, De Palma anymore. Now this is kind of lame because Betsy posted this review last summer, just 6 months ago. And she goes on there just to criticize Mission Impossible. I don't think you can, as a movie critic, come into it this late in the game and just decide, oh, this is a stupid film. For instance, I hate The Godfather.
What?
Just stick with me. I think it's self-indulgent.
What?
I think it's overblown.
What?
It's overstuffed.
What?
However, I recognize that it's a great film.
Oh, you're good.
Objectively speaking, The Godfather has shaped culture, especially pop culture, in an infinite amount of ways. So subjectively, I don't think it's a great movie. It's just not one. It's not for me. I prefer something more fast-paced, more witty, more snappy, like Goodfellas, right? It's because I'm not of the time. I wasn't a 70s kid. I was an 80s and 90s kid. So I was about a decade late for Godfather to really appreciate it. So Betsy, for all we know, is a 12-year-old influencer here on Rotten Tomatoes complaining about a movie that's 30 years old. So I don't think that it's fair that we can just randomly attach her negative review to this movie, even if it was a positive review. There needs to be a cutoff date. If there's a cutoff for taxes, why not a cutoff date for reviewing movies? It only makes sense. Movies are generational. There's a lot of people that are going to review Gone with the Wind today. They're going to complain that it's racist. But the people in the 30s, they didn't view it through that scope. So anyway, I don't think Betsy Sherman, I don't think her review should really be part of this Rotten Tomatoes score. Anyway, I did want to point out, there was one audience review that actually got me laughing. This is from R. Jerry Caldwell, MSN.com, I guess. It's all one word. He gives Mission Impossible 3 out of 5 stars, and he says, I enjoyed watching it, but I have seen it before. So what's this guy going to do? He's going to go on there and just every movie he has to rewatch or chooses to rewatch, he's automatically just going to knock some points off because, hey, I've seen it before. Jaws is a horrible movie. I've seen it twice before. Now it's horrible. I loved it the first time, but now on my third time through, it's stupid. I just thought that was kind of funny. This guy's a little keyboard happy. All right, so the most honest review for Mission Impossible comes from Patrick Hicks from Fill in Film Podcast. He says, this works as a really great conservative prototype for future installments, complete with tech gadgetry and big action set pieces. You know what? It's not a perfect film, but it is a lot of fun as a summer blockbuster. You can watch it with your brain turned off or your brain turned on. Either way, it works. All right, so that's all we have for Mission Impossible. Be sure to tune in for the next video where I will be releasing the answer to this week's clue. Remember, the clue is, guess what movie this review is about. Stretching out the material tends to accentuate the rather conventional nature of the underlying story. And by the time the deeper subtext is brought to the forefront, it draws the curtain. So if you think you know what the answer is, leave your answer down below. Leave your thoughts down below too on what you think about Mission Impossible. And are you excited for Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, coming out in just a couple of months?
Destruct in 5 seconds.